She stumbled into the house, the click of her heels echoing down the hallway. The familiar scent of alcohol mixed with a perfume I didn't recognize hung in the air, assaulting my senses as I watched from the shadows of our dimly lit foyer. It was past midnight, far later than she ever stayed out without me. My heart thudded in my chest as I silently observed her fumble with the keys, her laughter ringing unnaturally loud in the silence of our home. "Careful," I heard her slurred voice mutter to herself as she finally managed to unlock the door. She pushed it open with a force that nearly sent her stumbling backward, but she caught herself on the doorframe, giggling. The sound sent a chill down my spine. I stood frozen, my mind racing to comprehend what I was witnessing. For 23 years we had built a life together, weathering storms and celebrating triumphs side by side. But in that moment, everything shattered. The pieces fell into place with a sickening clarity. I knew she had been cheating on me. As she staggered further into the house, I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the turmoil within me. "Where have you been?" I asked, my tone sharp with accusation. Startled, she turned towards me, her eyes widening in surprise before a lazy smile crossed her lips. "Oh, honey," she slurred, her words slinking together. "I was just out with some friends. You know how it is." But I did know. I knew exactly how it was because the signs were unmistakable. The way she avoided my gaze, the lingering scent of another man on her clothes, the fumbled lies, all of it confirmed my worst fears. "No," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and anger. "You've been lying to me." Her smile faltered, replaced by a fleeting look of guilt that vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. "It's not what you think," she protested weakly. But her words held no weight against the truth that hung heavy in the air. I took a step closer, my hands clenched at my sides. "Who is he?" I demanded, my voice rising with each word. "How long has this been going on?" Her facade cracked then, the mask of indifference slipping away to reveal a flicker of fear in her eyes. "It doesn't matter," she said, her voice trembling now too. "You wouldn't understand." But I understood more than she realized. I understood the depth of her betrayal, the years of deception that had eroded the foundation of our marriage. And in that moment, standing face to face with the truth, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, the weight of the previous night's revelations hung heavy in the air between us. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee as if trying to ward off the inevitable conversation. But there was no avoiding it, not after what I had seen, what I had learned. I studied her carefully, noting the fatigue etched into her features, the slight tremor in her hands as she reached for her mug. "We need to talk," I said finally, my voice calm but tinged with an edge of steel. She looked up, meeting my gaze with a mixture of apprehension and resignation. "About last night?" she asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, about last night," I replied, my jaw tight with suppressed emotion. "I need you to be honest with me for once." She hesitated, her eyes flickering away from mine. "It was just a mistake," she began, her words hesitant. "A moment of weakness." "A moment of weakness?" I echoed incredulously. "You've been lying to me for years." Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment the mask of defensiveness slipped away to reveal a flicker of remorse. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered, her voice thick with unshed tears. I thought I could keep it hidden, that it wouldn't matter." "But it does matter," I said, my voice breaking with the weight of betrayal. "It matters more than anything." Silence stretched between us then, thick and suffocating, as the truth settled over us like a shroud. She had betrayed not just my trust, but the very foundation of our marriage. And as I sat there, grappling with the enormity of her deception, a part of me knew that this was only the beginning. "What's his name?" I asked finally, my voice steady despite the turmoil within me. "How many others have there been?" Her gaze dropped to her hands, which trembled slightly in her lap. "It's not just one person," she admitted softly. "There have been others over the years." Others. The word echoed in my mind, each syllable a dagger to my heart. I had suspected as much, piecing together fragments of conversations, odd absences, and the subtle changes in her behavior over time. But hearing it confirmed, seeing the pain etched into her features, did little to ease the ache of betrayal. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "but I want to try. Try." The word hung between us, heavy with unspoken promises and shattered trust. And as I sat there grappling with the wreckage of our marriage, I knew that whatever came next, it would never be the same again. Days passed in a haze of disbelief and anger. Each moment seemed to stretch into eternity as I grappled with the reality of my wife's betrayal. The house, once filled with laughter and love, now echoed with the hollow silence of shattered trust. I couldn't escape the images that haunted me. The sight of her stumbling home that fateful night, the scent of another man clinging to her clothes, the lies that had unraveled our life together. But amidst the turmoil, one thing remained clear. I needed answers. I found her in the study one evening, bathed in the soft glow of the desk lamp, a stack of papers spread out before her. She looked up as I entered, her expression guarded but tinged with a weariness that mirrored my own. "We need to talk," I said quietly, my voice betraying none of the turmoil within me. She nodded, pushing aside the papers with a sigh. "I know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I crossed the room in measured steps, stopping before her with a mix of anger and sorrow burning in my chest. "Tell me everything," I demanded, my voice trembling with the weight of unspoken accusations. She hesitated, her gaze dropping to her hands folded in her lap. "It started a long time ago," she began haltingly, her words heavy with remorse. "I thought I could keep it hidden, that it wouldn't change anything between us." "Change anything?" I repeated incredulously, the words catching in my throat. "You've been living a lie." Tears welled in her eyes then, spilling down her cheeks in silent testament to the pain we both felt. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered, her voice raw with emotion. "I was selfish, I know that now." Selfish. The word hung between us, heavy with regret and shattered trust. And as I stood there, grappling with the enormity of her confession, a part of me wanted to believe it was all a bad dream, that I would wake up and find our life restored to its former happiness. "But it's too late for that now," I said finally, my voice steady despite the turmoil within me. "You've crossed a line, and there's no going back." She nodded silently, her shoulders slumping under the weight of my words. For a moment the room was filled with the sound of our shared grief, the ache of lost years and broken promises. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I admitted quietly, the admission hanging in the air between us like an unspoken truth. She reached out then, her hand trembling as she brushed a tear from my cheek. "I understand," she whispered, her voice thick with sorrow. "But please give me a chance to make things right." Make things right. The words echoed in my mind, each syllable a plea for redemption and forgiveness. And as I stood there, grappling with the wreckage of our marriage, I knew that whatever came next, it would define the future of our love. The days stretched into weeks as I grappled with the aftermath of our confrontation. Each moment seemed to blur into the next, the weight of betrayal heavy on my shoulders. But amidst the turmoil, memories of our early years together haunted me, the moments of joy, the laughter, the dreams we once shared. I found myself drawn to old photographs scattered throughout the house, captured moments frozen in time. In each image, there was a glimpse of the happiness we had once known, the smiles, the shared adventures, the love that had bound us together. I lingered over one photo in particular, taken on our wedding day. Her smile was radiant, her eyes filled with hope and promise for the future. We had stood before friends and family, pledging our love and commitment to each other, a promise that now felt like a distant echo. As I traced the outline of her face in the photograph, memories flooded back, the early days of our marriage, filled with excitement and possibility. We had built a life together, navigating the challenges and triumphs with unwavering support for each other. But somewhere along the way, things had changed. The signs were subtle at first, a missed dinner here, a late night at the office there. I had brushed them aside, trusting in the strength of our bond. But now, with the weight of her betrayal pressing down on me, those moments took on a new significance. I remembered the nights we had spent talking for hours, sharing our hopes and dreams. I remembered the vacations we had taken, exploring new places hand in hand. And I remembered the quiet moments of intimacy when our love had felt unbreakable. But alongside those memories, there were other moments too. Arguments left unresolved, distant looks that passed between us, the gradual erosion of trust. I had ignored the signs, choosing to believe in the facade of our happiness rather than face the truth. And now, as I looked back on those early years with a mix of nostalgia and regret, I realized that our marriage had been built on a fragile foundation. We had loved fiercely, yes, but somewhere along the way, we had lost sight of what had brought us together in the first place. I set the photograph aside with a sigh, the weight of past and present colliding within me. The memories of our early years together were bittersweet reminders of what we had once been, a couple filled with hope and promise. But they were also a stark reminder of how far we had strayed from that path. As I closed my eyes, I vowed to uncover the truth, to understand how we had come to this point and what it would take to find our way back, if that was even possible. The days blurred together as I immersed myself in the task of unraveling the web of lies that had ensnared our marriage. Every spare moment was dedicated to sifting through old emails, scouring through phone records, and piecing together fragments of conversations. I started with the basics, combing through our shared accounts for any anomalies. There were transactions I didn't recognize, dinner reservations for two at unfamiliar restaurants, hotel stays in cities she had never mentioned visiting. Each discovery was a dagger to my heart, a reminder of the betrayal that had gone unnoticed for so long. But it wasn't enough. I needed concrete evidence, something that would confirm my suspicions beyond a shadow of a doubt. So I turned to technology, installing spyware on her phone and computer, tracking her movements and monitoring her communications. What I found was both damning and heartbreaking. Text messages exchanged with a man named Mike, phone calls made late at night when she thought I was asleep. The evidence piled up, revealing a pattern of deceit that stretched back years. I hired a private investigator next, someone skilled in uncovering the truth buried beneath layers of deception. They delved into her social media accounts, interviewed acquaintances, and followed her discreetly when she thought no one was watching. Their report confirmed my worst fears. My wife had not just one affair, but several, each one carefully hidden behind a facade of normalcy. The investigators' photos captured moments of intimacy I had never imagined, moments that shattered the illusion of our marriage. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I faced a crossroads. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to demand answers and closure, but another part knew that patience was key, that I needed to gather as much evidence as possible before making my next move. So I continued my investigation, digging deeper into her past and uncovering secrets I had never expected to find. Old emails surfaced. Conversations with friends revealed half-truths and outright lies. The more I uncovered, the more I realized just how far her deception had reached. But amidst the pain and betrayal, a part of me still clung to hope that somehow, someway, we could find a way back to each other. That perhaps this investigation, painful as it was, could lead to a path of healing and forgiveness. As I sat in the darkness of our bedroom one night, surrounded by evidence of her infidelity, I knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges. But I also knew that I couldn't turn back. Not now, not after everything that had been laid bare. With a heavy heart and a determination born of desperation, I vowed to continue my search for the truth, to uncover the full extent of her betrayal, and to confront her with the evidence that would change everything. The evidence continued to mount, each piece revealing a new layer of deception that had tainted our marriage. I sat in our study, surrounded by files and photographs, piecing together the puzzle of my wife's betrayal. The private investigator's report had been thorough, uncovering not just one affair but a web of lies that stretched back years. I traced the timeline of her infidelities, mapping out the moments of deceit that had fractured our trust. There were emails, innocuous on the surface but laden with hidden meanings and secret rendezvous. There were text messages, cryptic in their brevity but revealing in their intimacy. And there were photographs, moments captured in time, proof of a life she had kept hidden from me. But it wasn't just the affairs that shook me to the core. It was the realization that I had been living in ignorance, oblivious to the depth of her deception. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, had led a double life, one that had unraveled the very fabric of our marriage. I confronted her with the evidence one evening, laying out the photographs and messages like a prosecutor presenting a case in court. She sat across from me, her face pale and drawn, unable to meet my gaze. "It's not what you think," she whispered, her voice hollow with guilt. But the evidence spoke for itself. There were no more lies to hide behind, no more excuses to offer. The truth had been laid bare, and with it, the fragile remnants of our marriage. "How could you?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow. How could you betray everything we built together? She remained silent, her eyes fixed on her hands folded in her lap. I waited for an explanation, a shred of remorse, but none came. Instead, there was only the weight of her silence, a silence that spoke volumes. You destroyed us, I said finally, my voice breaking with the weight of unspoken accusations. You destroyed everything we had. Tears welled in her eyes then, spilling down her cheeks in silent testament to the pain we both felt. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I never meant to hurt you, but her words held little comfort, overshadowed by the enormity of her betrayal. The web of lies she had woven had ensnared us both, leaving behind a trail of devastation that seemed impossible to repair. As I sat there grappling with the wreckage of our marriage, I knew that whatever came next, it would redefine the boundaries of forgiveness and redemption. The web of lies she had spun would take time to unravel, but I was determined to uncover the truth, to understand how we had come to this point, and what it would take to find our way back, if that was even possible. The days following the confrontation were a blur of conflicting emotions, anger, betrayal, and a simmering desire for retribution. I withdrew into myself, grappling with the devastation of my shattered marriage and the burning need to reclaim what was lost. As I sat in our now empty study, surrounded by the remnants of our life together, a plan began to take shape in my mind. It was not enough to simply confront her and walk away. No, I needed to make her understand the depth of my pain, to feel the consequences of her betrayal. I began by securing my own financial future. With the help of a trusted lawyer, I reviewed our assets and initiated discreet transfers to accounts she had no knowledge of. It was a move born out of necessity, to protect myself from the financial fallout of our impending divorce. But revenge was more than just securing my finances. It was about hitting her where it hurt the most, her reputation, her pride, and her sense of self-worth. I compiled a dossier of evidence, photographs, emails, messages, that detailed her infidelities in painstaking detail. Each piece of evidence was a weapon in my arsenal, a means to expose her lies and deceit to the world. I reached out to our mutual friends, sharing carefully selected snippets of the truth, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion in their minds. I orchestrated chance encounters at social gatherings, where subtle hints and knowing glances served as reminders of her betrayal. I watched as the facade of her perfect life began to crack under the weight of my carefully calculated revenge. But it wasn't just about public humiliation. It was about ensuring that she felt the full extent of my pain, that she understood the consequences of her actions. I filed for divorce, citing her infidelity as grounds for dissolution, and ensured that the prenuptial agreement left her with nothing. The legal battle was bitter and contentious, each negotiation a battleground where past grievances and unspoken hurts collided. But I remained steadfast in my resolve, unwilling to back down until justice had been served. Through it all, I maintained a facade of composure, a mask of indifference that belied the storm of emotions raging within me. I was a man on a mission, driven by a thirst for retribution and a desire to reclaim my dignity. As I sat in the courtroom, listening to the final verdict of our divorce proceedings, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. She had fought tooth and nail, refusing to accept the consequences of her actions. But in the end, the truth had prevailed. But even as I emerged victorious, I knew that my journey was far from over. The scars of her betrayal ran deep, leaving behind wounds that would take time to heal, and as I walked away from our shared life, I vowed to never forget the lessons learned, to trust again, but this time, to trust myself above all else. With the divorce proceedings underway, I focused my attention on securing my financial future and ensuring that she would face the consequences of her betrayal. It was a delicate dance, navigating the murky waters of our shared assets while protecting my own interests. I consulted with a seasoned financial advisor, laying out the details of our marriage and the evidence of her infidelities. Together, we devised a strategy to safeguard my finances and minimize her claims to our joint assets. First, I began by discreetly transferring funds into accounts she had no knowledge of. It was a necessary step to protect myself from any attempts to drain our shared accounts or manipulate our financial resources to her advantage. Next, I reviewed our investments and properties, ensuring that each asset was accounted for and valued accurately. I kept meticulous records of our financial transactions, documenting every transfer and expenditure, with an eye towards protecting my interests in the divorce proceedings. I updated my will and estate plans, revising beneficiary designations to reflect the changes in our marital status. It was a precautionary measure, ensuring that she would not benefit from my assets in the event of my death, a stark reminder of the trust that had been irreparably broken. Throughout the process, I remained vigilant, anticipating her every move and preparing countermeasures to safeguard my financial security. It was a game of strategy and foresight, where each decision carried weight and consequence. But it wasn't just about protecting my assets. It was about sending a message that her actions had consequences, and that she would not emerge unscathed from the wreckage of our marriage. As the divorce proceedings progressed, tensions ran high, each negotiation a battleground where past grievances and unspoken hurts collided. I stood firm in my resolve, unwilling to compromise on the terms that would secure my future and ensure that justice was served. But amidst the legal battles and financial maneuverings, a part of me struggled with the emotional toll of our separation. The wounds of her betrayal ran deep, leaving behind scars that would take time to heal. As I reviewed the final settlement agreement, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. She had fought tooth and nail, refusing to accept the consequences of her actions. But in the end, the truth had prevailed, and I had emerged victorious in more ways than one. But even as I closed this chapter of my life, I knew that the journey towards healing was far from over. The scars of her betrayal would linger, a reminder of the trust that had been shattered and the lessons learned along the way. As I walked away from our shared life, I vowed to rebuild and reclaim my sense of self-worth. I had navigated the storm of her betrayal with resilience and determination, emerging stronger and more resilient than ever before. With the divorce settled and my financial affairs secured, I turned my attention to another aspect of my revenge, exposing her infidelities to our social circle. It was a calculated move, designed to ensure that she faced the consequences of her actions beyond the confines of our private lives. I orchestrated chance encounters with mutual friends and acquaintances, carefully weaving subtle hints and revealing snippets of the truth. Each interaction was a strategic maneuver, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion in their minds. I didn't resort to outright slander or public accusations. Instead, I allowed the evidence to speak for itself: subtle hints, whispered conversations, and carefully timed revelations that painted a picture of her deceitful behavior. It was a delicate balance, walking the fine line between justice and vindication. I watched as her carefully constructed facade began to crumble under the weight of my carefully orchestrated revelations. There were whispers at social gatherings, exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Friends approached me cautiously, seeking confirmation of what they had heard through the grapevine. I offered them glimpses of the truth, careful not to reveal more than necessary. Some chose to distance themselves from her, unable to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the reality of her actions. Others remained loyal, refusing to believe the rumors and choosing instead to turn a blind eye to the truth. But the damage had been done. Her social standing began to unravel, a consequence of the web of lies she had spun and the betrayal she had wrought upon our marriage. I watched from a distance, a silent observer in the unfolding drama of her social humiliation. It was not enough to simply divorce her and move on. No, I needed her to understand the full extent of the devastation she had caused, to feel the weight of her actions bearing down on her. As the weeks turned into months, I continued to navigate the aftermath of our separation with a mix of satisfaction and sadness. The wounds of her betrayal ran deep, leaving behind scars that would take time to heal. But amidst the pain and the chaos, a part of me found solace in knowing that justice had been served. She had faced the consequences of her actions, both in the courtroom and in the court of public opinion. As I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point, I knew that I had emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. I had navigated the storm of her betrayal with determination and grace, reclaiming my sense of self-worth and rebuilding my life on my own terms. But even as I closed this chapter of my life, I knew that the journey towards healing was far from over. The scars of her betrayal would linger, a reminder of the trust that had been shattered and the lessons learned along the way. As I walked away from our shared life, I vowed to continue moving forward with courage and conviction. I had confronted her infidelities with dignity and resolve, emerging from the wreckage of our marriage with a newfound sense of purpose and strength. As the dust settled from the divorce and the repercussions of her infidelities reverberated through our social circles, I focused my attention on one final act of revenge, a setup that would bring her deceit to a definitive conclusion. I knew from my investigations and the evidence gathered that she had a penchant for secrecy and discretion in her affairs. It was this very trait that would become her undoing. I employed the services of a trusted friend, someone who shared my desire for justice and understood the gravity of the situation. Together, we devised a plan to lure her into a trap, a scenario that would expose her duplicity once and for all. The stage was set with meticulous care. I arranged for my friend to pose as a wealthy business associate from out of town, someone she had never met, but whose presence would intrigue her curiosity. We chose a venue, a secluded restaurant known for its discreet ambiance and intimate setting. I orchestrated the encounter carefully, ensuring that every detail was accounted for. My friend played his part flawlessly, exuding charm and charisma as he engaged her in conversation, drawing her into his carefully crafted web of deception. I watched from a distance, hidden in the shadows of the restaurant's dimly lit corners. My heart pounded with anticipation, knowing that the moment of reckoning was approaching, a moment that would bring closure to the chapter of my life, marred by her betrayal. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by shared laughter and exchanged glances. But beneath the surface, I knew that my friend was planting seeds of doubt, subtly probing her defenses and unraveling the carefully constructed facade she had built. And then it happened. In a moment of unguarded vulnerability, she revealed a detail, a slip of the tongue, a reference to a memory shared with another man. It was a confession disguised as innocence, a glimpse into the hidden world she had kept hidden from me. My friend seized upon the opportunity, gently pressing for more information while maintaining the facade of curiosity and intrigue. He deftly steered the conversation towards her past indiscretions, subtly exposing the truth without revealing our role in the setup. She hesitated, her expression shifting from confidence to uncertainty. And in that moment, I saw the realization dawn in her eyes, the realization that she had been caught in her own web of lies, exposed for the world to see. I emerged from the shadows then, confronting her with the evidence of her betrayal. There were no more secrets to hide behind, no more lies to weave. The truth had been laid bare, and with it, the final act of my revenge was complete. She stood before me, speechless and defeated, unable to meet my gaze, and as I looked into her eyes, I saw the flicker of remorse buried beneath layers of pride and denial. "You did this to yourself," I said quietly, my voice tinged with a mix of anger and sorrow. "You destroyed everything we had." She remained silent, her shoulders slumping under the weight of my words. There were no more excuses, no more justifications. She had brought this upon herself, and now she would have to face the consequences. As I turned away from her, walking out of the restaurant and into the cool night air, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The chapter of my life marked by her betrayal had come to an end, and I was finally free to begin anew. But even as I walked away, leaving her behind in the wreckage of our shared past, I knew that the journey towards healing was far from over. The scars of her betrayal would linger, a reminder of the trust that had been shattered and the lessons learned along the way. As I drove home, I vowed to continue moving forward with courage and conviction. I had confronted her infidelities with dignity and resolve, emerging from the storm of her betrayal with a newfound sense of purpose and strength. In the aftermath of the orchestrated setup, a quiet sense of closure settled over me. The final act of revenge had been executed with precision, exposing her deceit and bringing an end to the tumultuous chapter of our marriage marked by betrayal. As I navigated the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life and reclaiming my sense of self-worth. The wounds of her infidelity still lingered, but I found solace in the knowledge that justice had been served, that she had faced the consequences of her actions. But amidst the quiet moments of reflection, a part of me wrestled with the question of closure. I knew that the journey towards healing was far from over, and that I needed to confront her one final time, to demand answers, to seek closure, and to find a way to move forward. I arranged a meeting, choosing a neutral location where we could speak privately without distractions. It was a moment fraught with tension, emotions simmering beneath the surface as we faced each other once more. She arrived with a hesitant smile, her eyes betraying a mix of apprehension and regret. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us like a heavy shroud. "I need to understand," I began quietly, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging within me. "Why? Why did you do it?" She hesitated, her fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth as she searched for the right words. "I don't know," she admitted finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was lost. I thought I could find something more." Her words cut through me like a knife, stirring a mix of anger and sympathy. "And what about us?" I pressed, my voice tinged with bitterness. "What about everything we built together?" Tears welled in her eyes then, spilling down her cheeks in silent testament to the pain we both felt. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I never meant to hurt you." Her apology hung in the air between us, a fragile thread of remorse in the aftermath of her betrayal. But it was not enough, not to erase the scars of her infidelity, not to mend the trust that had been shattered. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you," I admitted, my voice breaking with the weight of unspoken pain. "But I need to move forward. We both do." She nodded silently, her gaze fixed on her hands folded in her lap. We sat in silence for a long moment, the echoes of our shared past mingling with the uncertainty of our future. "I wish you well," I said finally, my voice steady despite the ache in my heart. "But this is goodbye." As I walked away from her, leaving behind the remnants of our shared life, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The journey towards healing would be long and arduous, but I knew that I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my sense of self-worth and rebuilding my life on my own terms. And as I drove away, leaving her behind in the wreckage of our shared past, I knew that I was finally free, to forge a new path forward, guided by resilience and the lessons learned from the storm of her betrayal. With the emotional confrontation behind me, I turned my attention to the practicalities of moving forward with my life. Legal action was necessary to formalize the end of our marriage and to ensure that I could begin anew without the shadow of her betrayal looming over me. I consulted with my lawyer, reviewing the documentation and evidence gathered throughout our tumultuous divorce proceedings. It was a painstaking process, but one that was necessary to ensure that justice was served and my rights were protected. We finalized the divorce settlement, outlining the terms of our separation and the division of our assets. It was a bitter negotiation, each detail a battleground where past grievances and unspoken hurts collided. I remained steadfast in my resolve, unwilling to compromise on the terms that would secure my future and allow me to reclaim my sense of self-worth. My lawyer navigated the legal complexities with skill and determination, advocating on my behalf to ensure that my interests were represented. But legal action was not just about the division of assets. It was also about holding her accountable for the consequences of her actions, both in the courtroom and in the court of public opinion. I pursued legal avenues to protect myself from any further attempts to manipulate or deceive. Restraining orders and legal injunctions were sought to ensure that she could not interfere with my life or my future prospects. It was a difficult process, fraught with emotional and financial strain. But with each legal victory, I found a sense of closure, a validation of the pain and betrayal I had endured, and a recognition of my right to move forward without the burden of her deceit. As the legal proceedings drew to a close, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point. The scars of her betrayal would linger, a reminder of the trust that had been shattered and the resilience it had taken to rebuild my life. But amidst the pain and the chaos, I found solace in knowing that justice had been served. Legal action had provided a framework for closure, allowing me to formalize the end of our marriage and to begin the process of healing and moving forward. As I signed the final documents, marking the official end of our union, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The chapter of my life marked by her betrayal had come to a close, and I was finally free to forge a new path forward, guided by resilience, strength, and a newfound sense of self-worth. But even as I closed this chapter of my life, I knew that the journey towards healing was far from over. The scars of her betrayal would linger, a reminder of the trust that had been shattered and the lessons learned along the way. As I walked away from the courthouse, leaving behind the remnants of our shared past, I vowed to continue moving forward with courage and conviction. I had navigated the storm of her betrayal with determination and grace, emerging from the wreckage of our marriage with a newfound sense of purpose and strength. With the legal proceedings finalized and the divorce settlement secured, I focused on rebuilding my life while keeping a watchful eye on the aftermath of her actions. It wasn't long before the consequences of her betrayal began to catch up with her, leading to a downfall that would reshape her life in unexpected ways. The revelations of her infidelities had not gone unnoticed by our social circle. Whispers and rumors circulated, painting a portrait of deceit and betrayal that tarnished her once impeccable reputation. Mutual friends and acquaintances began to distance themselves, unable to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the reality of her actions. Some confronted her directly, seeking answers and explanations that she struggled to provide. Her professional life also felt the impact of her downfall. Colleagues and business associates learned of her indiscretions, casting doubt on her integrity and trustworthiness. Opportunities dwindled, once promising partnerships faltered, and her career prospects dimmed in the harsh light of public scrutiny. As her world unraveled, I watched from a distance, a silent witness to the consequences of her betrayal. It was not out of vindictiveness, but rather a somber acknowledgement of the ripple effects caused by her choices. She reached out to me on occasion, seeking reconciliation or understanding. But each attempt was met with a firm resolve on my part to maintain boundaries and protect myself from further emotional turmoil. Her downfall was a painful reminder of the fragility of trust and the enduring consequences of betrayal. It served as a cautionary tale, not just for her, but for those who bore witness to the unraveling of her carefully crafted facade. Despite the bitterness of our past, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of empathy for the woman who had once been my wife. Beneath the layers of deceit and betrayal, I recognized the human frailty and the complexities that had led her down this path. But even as I acknowledged her struggles, I remained steadfast in my commitment to moving forward with my life. The scars of her betrayal would heal with time, but the lessons learned would shape my future decisions and interactions. As I reflected on her downfall and its impact on both of our lives, I knew that the journey towards healing was ongoing. It was a journey marked by resilience, introspection, and a steadfast determination to reclaim my sense of self-worth and rebuild my life on my own terms. With the echoes of her downfall fading into the background, I turned my focus inward, determined to reclaim my sense of self-worth and rebuild my life on my own terms. Moving on was not just about leaving the past behind. It was about embracing the future with resilience and determination. I immersed myself in new opportunities and experiences, seeking solace in the simple joys of everyday life. I reconnected with old friends and forged new relationships, surrounding myself with a support network that uplifted and encouraged me during moments of doubt. I pursued passions and hobbies that had long been neglected during the turmoil of our marriage. Whether it was hiking in the mountains, exploring new cuisines, or delving into literature, each activity brought a sense of fulfillment and renewal. But moving on was also about introspection and growth. I embarked on a journey of self-discovery, confronting the wounds of her betrayal with courage and compassion. Therapy sessions provided a safe space to explore my emotions and unravel the complexities of trust and forgiveness. I learned to forgive, not for her sake, but for my own peace of mind. Forgiveness was a gradual process, marked by moments of clarity and acceptance. It was a choice to release the resentment and anger that had weighed heavily on my heart, freeing myself from the emotional shackles of the past. As I embraced healing and personal growth, I also redefined my priorities and aspirations for the future. Career ambitions took center stage as I pursued professional opportunities with renewed vigor and determination. I invested in my physical and mental well-being, prioritizing self-care and mindfulness practices that nurtured a sense of balance and resilience. Yoga and meditation became daily rituals, grounding me in the present moment and fostering a sense of inner peace. Throughout it all, I remained grateful for the lessons learned from the storm of her betrayal. It was a journey marked by resilience, introspection, and a steadfast determination to reclaim my sense of self-worth. And as I reflected on the path that had brought me to this point, I knew that moving on was not about forgetting the past, but rather embracing it as part of my journey towards healing and wholeness. The scars of her betrayal would heal with time, but the lessons learned would shape my future decisions and interactions. As I looked towards the horizon, filled with possibilities and new beginnings, I felt a sense of hope and optimism for the road ahead. Moving on was a testament to my strength and resilience, a journey towards reclaiming my life and embracing the limitless potential that lay before me. As I look back on the tumultuous journey that began with the vivid event of her drunken confession and culminated in the profound transformation of my own life, I find myself reflecting on the lessons learned and the growth achieved. Her betrayal shattered my world, leaving behind wounds that cut deep into the fabric of trust and love. But through the pain and heartache, I discovered a reservoir of strength and resilience within myself, qualities that I had not fully realized until tested by adversity. I learned the power of forgiveness, not as a pardon for her actions, but as a release from the bitterness and resentment that threatened to consume me. Forgiveness was a gift I gave myself, allowing me to heal and move forward with grace and dignity. I learned the importance of setting boundaries and protecting my own well-being. Through therapy and introspection, I gained clarity on my values and priorities, paving the way for a life guided by authenticity and self-respect. I learned that true closure does not come from revenge or retribution, but from inner peace and acceptance. Confronting her infidelities and seeking justice was a necessary step in my healing journey, but true closure came from within, a deep-seated understanding that I had the power to shape my own destiny. I learned the value of resilience and perseverance in the face of adversity. The journey towards healing was marked by setbacks and challenges, but each obstacle strengthened my resolve and deepened my resilience. Most importantly, I learned that endings are also beginnings. The end of my marriage marked the start of a new chapter, one filled with possibilities, growth, and renewed purpose. As I stand on the threshold of the future, I am grateful for the lessons learned and the strength gained from weathering the storm of her betrayal. I carry with me the scars of the past as reminders of my resilience and the depths of my own capacity for forgiveness and compassion. And as I look ahead, I embrace the journey with optimism and hope. The road may be winding and uncertain, but I walk it with confidence, knowing that I have emerged from the wreckage of my past, stronger and more resilient than ever before. Her betrayal was a chapter in my life, a chapter marked by pain, betrayal, and heartache. But it was also a chapter that led me to discover my own inner strength, resilience, and capacity for growth. And as I close the book on this chapter of my life, I do so with gratitude for the lessons learned and the person I have become. I am ready to embrace the future with an open heart and a renewed sense of purpose.